But think what would happen if those stem cells stopped doing their job. And that's what happens in a lot of patients who really aren't living a healthy lifestyle, is those cells can get hurt and they're not doing their job, so injuries stack up. In 2004, I was reading an animal study on a rabbit that showed that you could take mesenchymal stem cells and regrow a disc. Obviously that caught my attention because we had a lot of back pain patients with bad discs. So I sought out some researchers that were using mesenchymal stem cells to treat injuries, and they were doing it in horses, and so we ported that over to humans. So to date, we've published 50% of all of the patients in the world literature who have been treated with stem cells and who have orthopedic problems. What we can say at this point is that the environment that your stem cells are in can have a dramatic impact on their ability to grow, proliferate, and do what they're supposed to. That environment can be affected by diet, can be affected by exercise, can be affected by medications.
Everything in the body has multiple functions, multiple sites of action. So when you give a drug that you think is working in one site, it's working and doing things all over the body in ways that we may not even comprehend. That's why when you look at pharmaceuticals, the list of side effects are huge, and often including death. If you've watched television and you see the commercials for many of the pharmaceuticals, they actually show people having a wonderful time, and then they say, and by the way, this drug may kill you. That is one thing that does not happen when you eat the right foods, when you exercise, when you incorporate periodic fasting.
So what we found was that high blood pressure medications, cholesterol medications, these are common things taken by many, many different Americans, but they hurt their stem cells' ability to grow in culture. So that's not a good thing. If you think about the fact that these medications are impacting your body's own stem cells and their ability to maintain and repair that body, that's a big problem. So as an example, we've treated lots of patients through the years with tendinopathy due to taking a specific type of antibiotic.
I literally became debilitated. I had shoulder pain, neck pain, leg pain. I could barely walk. I even had a hard time breathing. 2 of my discs had completely herniated into my spine. I really felt I was dying.
Now this is a known problem. They'll take this antibiotic because they have a common cold, and the next thing they know, they're in chronic pain all over their body. Why? Because that particular antibiotic reduces the stem cells' ability in their body to repair their tendons. And we all get tendon wear and tear every day that needs to be repaired. So one of the things we started realizing is that when we were going to use the patient's own cells to try to repair something, we had to have patients clean up their lifestyle, including their diet. We make sure that they're fasting when they come in because we know that fasting can increase the body's ability to help repair itself.
For the next several weeks after each time I do a fasting mimicking diet, I end up with significantly reduced pain in all of my joints.
Polycystic ovary syndrome, that's one of my niches. I deal a lot with hormones. If you take an unhealthy woman and you trick her body into getting pregnant, often it will be rejected, and if it's successful, it's not usually very successful because she often will have very severe complications later on towards the end of pregnancy, like high blood pressure, toxemia, preterm labor, a lot of diabetes, many, many complications in these women when they do not get them healthy but trick them into getting pregnant. So then she came to me and she just said, I've tried the conventional route. I've spent thousands of dollars trying to get pregnant, and what I've heard that there's this integrative approach. So what can you do to help me? She did everything I asked. So she had a large breakfast, she had a medium lunch, she had a tiny dinner, she didn't eat after 7 p.m. She began exercising, she ate no processed foods. She did everything right. Then after a month, I put her on Prolon. After 3 cycles, she got pregnant. That was almost a year ago. And she has recently delivered her baby. She has a beautiful, healthy baby. She's in her late 30s now. She's been trying for all these years.
Depending on the therapeutic use, you have to really understand this and use it to your advantage. So for example, when we do it for metabolic syndrome, diabetes, and cancer, we do between 4 and 5 days of fasting together with various therapies. That's sufficient. When we look at autoimmunities instead, we go to 7 days. Why do we do that? Because we now want to do more destruction of damaged cells, the autoimmune cells in this case. So if you do a shorter fast, you're not really going to benefit that much because you don't have enough time to destroy the damaged cells, and also you have less rebuilding using the stem cells, right? So this is why it's so important to understand the mechanisms behind it, and for each purpose, really using a different fasting-based intervention.
I was working on a documentary for the BBC, What If We Could Stay Young Forever? We were looking at diet and exercise and lifestyle. I met Dr. Walter Longo to talk about his work, and it was at the time he was preparing for his clinical trial and suggested that I might like to be one of the volunteers in that trial. So the trial involved what is known as a fasting mimicking diet over 5 consecutive days, and that was repeated 3 times.
One of the things that our large clinical trials have shown is that at the very least we know that fasting mimicking diets are safe for the average person.
Probably the number one thing that I noticed is weight control.
For the past year, I have prescribed Prolon diet to about 120 or 130 patients. A lot of them come to me saying, I tried all the diets and I can't lose weight. Well, I tell them, well, let me prove you wrong. Let's try this diet and you will see that you will lose weight. All of them have lost weight.
The other things we saw is that you do have to train the body. It's a little bit like working out. If you just do this once for 5 days, you'll get a lot of the benefits. Quite a bit of weight loss, a number of other metabolic markers may be affected as well, but you will eventually return to normal if you make no other lifestyle changes over the period of the next several weeks to months. If you do this consecutively for 3 months in a row of 5 days at the beginning of each month, we see that you maintain a much more significant amount of the benefits over a much longer period of time.
I find Prolon to be a breakthrough in the care that I give to diabetics.
Ideally, once a quarter is about what appears to be the kind of set point to keep that sort of cellular muscle tone, as you will, to keep the body in shape for nutrition. Dr. Longo actually did a study where he did 2 groups of mice. One group they both ate the same total calories during the study. One group had fasting mimicking mixed in and then overate, and the other group ate the same amount the whole time. And the group that overate with fasting mimicking diet was still skinny, and the other group of mice was obese. So it is really about training the cells how to use nutrition. You can take in even potentially less good for you foods if your body is in shape, and it'll do the right things with them.
People say they've lost up to 8 pounds a week. They have more energy, they feel better.
I've been trying to convince this patient for months and months, maybe a year, to try to give up his soda. It just took 5 days with Prolon for him to stop.
This is the brilliance of the fasting mimicking diet, that we get to harness our inner powers to heal while simultaneously enjoying food. So what could be better?
So what we've been teaching here since 1956 is that people ought not to be eating solid food until approximately 10 o'clock or so in the morning. We wind down in the evening. Ideally, you don't eat after 5, but the latest would be 6 or 7 o'clock at night, providing you go to bed then 3 hours later. Now, this is something we've observed with hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people for over 60 years. This is no longer a theory or a philosophy, and the scientific community now has validated what we've been observing in a clinical setting. So all of our guests here are encouraged to do at least a 1-day-a-week fast.
I had the privilege of directing one of the most renowned fasting clinics in Europe, in Sweden. So the government realized they needed to do research, and they spent about $2.5 billion to find, it was like 90% success rate. And we actually got certified. And by doing that to us, any physician that thought, well, you have an inflammatory problem, because fasting was definitely something that worked as an anti-inflammatory with arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, and gout, and asthma, emphysema, psoriasis, eczema, you name it, everything just about under the sun, and diabetes, cardiovascular, obesity, Crohn's, colitis. Then actually 80% of their fee would be paid by the government. So this was back in the mid-70s and ran until beginning of 80s. It disappeared when a new group came into the government. The problem is it wasn't replaced by something that was even better. They didn't have 90% success rate. I think those people were influenced by money, as simple as that.
I was driving and all the cars were disappearing into like abyss, into a mirror. And the white lanes were going up and down. And my head was pounding so bad that I felt like someone was taking a crowbar and pulling apart my head. I pulled over on the side of the turnpike. I had a 4-pound brain tumor that was surgically removed at the National Institutes of Health. It was the biggest ordeal that I ever went through. They drilled 6 holes into my head and 47 staple scar. When I was diagnosed with 2 more brain cancers, I fell apart. I could not handle having surgery. I couldn't handle chemo.
Here at Hippocrates, ever since 1956, we've been dealing with tens of thousands of people who have cancer.
In October of 2012, I found a lump in my breast.
It was cancer. This cancer had grabbed a hold of everything behind my knee and bundled it. So they couldn't do anything but cut my leg off above the knee.
And the last 3 oncologists that we consulted with, second and third opinions, all said the same thing, that she has to have the leg removed or she's going to die. No mistake about that.
Of course, fasting has always been a big part, a significant part of the caloric intake and dietary part of our program. But those who condone water fasting, in the case of people who are in the conquest of all forms of cancer, we don't think it's really prudent. You need caloric intake, you need the protein that literally comes from the juices we suggest here, which are non-sugary juices made out of green vegetables, green leaves, and most important, sprouts that have very high amounts of amino acids. And these amino acids are something that the body requires to maintain the strength and the viability of the cells. Now, we're made of cells. You have 100 trillion cells that make up your body. And this tends to break down. The emaciation you see from cancer basically is a protein degradation.
I ended up doing it for 3 months. And when I went back to the oncologist, I did the MRI with contrast. We got the results, no cancer.
I maintained this lifestyle very strictly for a full year, and at the same time continued to see that lump diminish until now it's gone.
At Hippocrates.
91, this little girl is 90.
For 21 years, I have been cancer-free. We are great dancers. We now teach people at Golden Lakes to dance.
How about a kiss?
Yeah.
I get these horrible skin rashes on my face, on my body. Coming to a place like Hippocrates would make my life and just the fasting experience a lot easier.
For me, just doing water fasting wasn't going to work. Even more than a day was very difficult, just for me personally. I can only speak from personal experience. But if I were to do the juice fasting, it was easier because I was able to still have that intake of food.
And today is actually the 4th day that I'm coming out. I'm easing myself gently out of the fast. My skin just smoothing out. I didn't have the red marks I usually have on my arms and on my face.
I didn't always feel this way about fasting. In fact, I was pretty opposed to it.
Dr. Mercola and I have been together 8 years, my significant other. So we did the program in 2012 here at Hippocrates, and I think it inspired him.
I've come to the conclusion that there is no single more powerful metabolic intervention that can be used than fasting. In fact, when people, friends or relatives come to me now with a heart attack or cancer, in almost every case that is the first step I'll have them do, because it's going to jumpstart their ability to burn fat for fuel and increase all the metabolic benefits that you get from doing that.
I lost 40 pounds in 90 days on a juice fast. Never gained it back.
So the problems we have today, that 2/3 of Americans are obese, 5% morbidly obese, diabetes, cancer, arthritis, all of this should never have happened. We had the solution in the 70s. We really need to realize there's nothing new under the sun. Get back on the track with your own lifestyle. Whatever religion, whatever country you come from, I think you will agree with this. We have to take our responsibility in our own hands and have the life for our family, for our children, our grandchildren, that they deserve. They deserve an amazing life. And I think most of us are looking right now at the future and saying, well, how are they going to deal with this? How are they going to deal with the diseases? How are they going to deal with food that's not nutritious, with all the chemicals, the pollution in our water, in our air? How are they going to deal with it? Well, it's time we deal with it.